was that when an actor would come in and sign up for an audition, we had a paragraph. We handed them a sheet of paper that said you're basically in for a parole hearing, and that you were convicted of murder 12 years ago, and you're here to plead your case. And we felt that that was a good scenario, because when you walk into a casting session, you've got a bunch of people behind a table with a camera, right, which would be similar to a parole hearing. So when the actor would come in, if they were in character, then we knew they got it. We knew immediately they were dialed in. So that was like the first layer of filtering out those that didn't get it. So we went through this process for several months, and then we sort of refined it. Like halfway through an audition, somebody would come in with their parole hearings pitch, and I would stand up behind the table and point to the corner of the room and say, you know, my plumbing has been leaking for about a week now. I don't understand. And if the actor didn't just like snap into being a plumber and like suddenly like tell me how to fix my plumbing, then I knew they didn't get it, right? So we went through these workshops, these improv workshops with auditions that helped us determine if they had the chops, if they had the real chops to be what we needed them to be ultimately in the film. And that was like totally realistic, completely on their toes improvisationally. And once we narrowed it down to about 10 or 15 people at the end of a year, then it was a matter of just like working them together to see who had the right chemistry. And that was, you don't have that luxury in a normal movie. You don't get to audition people for a year like that. And that's really helped us with like dialing in the actors and their ability and their talents to kind of embrace what we were trying to do with Blair Witch. And that's, I think, a big reason why it comes across so realistic, is the actors and their talent and their ability to improvise was really what came through in the film.
And they weren't really, I mean, while you were filming, they would get maybe a couple pages of dialogue per day, correct?
Well, we were taking this method approach to filming the movie. Like when they came out on set, like Heather, for example, we gave her an entire backstory of what the Blair Witch was about, because she would know. She's the one doing the documentary, right? So she had all the knowledge about Blair Witch and all the history of it. But Mike and Josh, we kept them in the dark, because Mike was the sound guy and Josh was the camera guy, so they probably wouldn't know as much about it. So we wanted them to ask her on camera what the hell we were doing, right? So we got this very natural interaction between her and the other guys. So we gave them as much background on their characters as that they would have in real life. And a good example is how we directed in the process in the woods is, you know, the actors had a GPS system where they allowed them to navigate through the woods unassisted by a crew, so they could kind of stay in character most of the time through the woods. And whenever they got to a GPS waypoint, they had these directing notes. We had little canisters where they would open up their directing notes, and we would like tell them, here's what you need to be feeling today, and all from the first person. So an example would be like, Heather, you need to continue going south all day because you know that's the way out, no matter what anybody says. And then Josh would get a note like, sometime today, dude, you need to fucking confront her, right? But we let the actors decide when that moment would be. We gave them the mandate, but we let them decide when to do it. So we were able to control the overall narrative, but let the actors sort of decide on their own instinctively when it would happen. So that preserved that natural kind of like spontaneity that film needed to feel real.
And they got to bring themselves, obviously, to the character because they understand the character's backstories, their motivations as you've provided that. But then they also get to add their own reactions to things within their character. So there's a lot of meta, situation happening in acting that's happening within that too. And one thing I do love about this, I read you and the other co-director, you were the, we have another question. Yes, thank you. Thank you for waving the flashlight.
Yeah, we can see you actually.
We can see you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Towards the beginning of the movie, there was a mother being interviewed about the Blair Witch, and the daughter covered her mouth.
Right.
Was that scripted or was that natural?
That was totally natural. we had a plan whenever we'd go into town. Basically, our structure was we had, like, for example, they'd go into a restaurant, and we had one person in the restaurant that knew the Blair Witch backstory. But we wanted the actors, the 3 actors, to kind of go in and just interview anybody. They didn't know who in the restaurant had the backstory. We told them just to go interview everybody. So we'd have all these natural reactions, like people would go, I don't know what you're talking about, right? We told them to film everything. So we get them a lot of turn downs, like people would like, you're full of shit, whatever. But this woman and her daughter came outside the restaurant, and she just went off and said, yeah, I've heard about this. I've heard on PBS and yada, yada, yada. And the daughter, the little baby daughter, who's now like, she's like in her 20s now, getting married, I think. But put her hand over her mouth, and it was completely unscripted, right? And it's like, this is one of those magic moments where, like, there was no Blair Witch mythology. We created it, and she's saying, "Oh yeah, I've heard about this on PBS." There was no PBS about
Thanks,
Blair Witch.
PBS.
So she's talking about it. We're watching this, and Ed and I are watching the kind of the dailies. Like, this is amazing. And what was kind of funny is that after we saw the footage, we didn't know who this woman was. We didn't have any release from her. Like months went by. Like, we need to get a release from this person because we can't release the movie without her. Yeah, we want to use this amazing moment. So we finally tracked her down. But it was one of those spontaneous moments that was really magical that you can't script. You know, you can kind of set it up and hope for the best, but that was one of those moments where it really was it just happened, and it was pretty magical.
We have another question from the audience.
What's up, man?